I'm interested in and very curious about. And I wrote a column yesterday and in our print editions today, published this morning, about this NFC South race. And we've got Saints Bucks. That's coming up Sunday. We also have Falcons Carolina. So it's an all intra-squad, intra-division matchups this week. And Jeff, I just put it in my column. Look, the Saints needed to win all 5 of these games in a row to be in the hunt for this division, because even though we've seen Carolina struggle, they're still 5-3. We've seen Atlanta struggle, they're still 4-3. So it's one game is the difference among those 3 teams. And as we've seen, look, second half of the season, it's anybody's ball game, really, because at some point the Saints are going to cool off and lose a game. But you just don't want it to happen this weekend, and you want to keep the pressure on the other teams. And look, you have the NFL midpoint of the season. You can't take the foot off the accelerator if you're the Saints.
I think 4-2 in the NFC South will win it. I think that's the goal. The Saints got a huge head start, by winning in Carolina. That was huge. Looking back on that, that might end up deciding the division. If Atlanta continues to falter. I mean, they look like a shell of the team that won the NFC a year ago. They just don't look like the same team. I think losing Kyle Shanahan was a huge factor. We all thought it might be a factor, and it's been a bigger factor than I think anybody anticipated. And I don't know about Carolina. I just can't buy in. I've been doubting them now for 2 years, and as soon as I doubt them, they go up to New England and win. So they've got to have, obviously, some ability. But when I watch them, I mean, they just look awful. They just do not look like a team capable of winning consistently. Yes, they can rise up and win at New England, but consistently right now, I think the Saints by far are the favorite in the division. And the key for them is just going to be trying to maintain it. And that's why Sean Payton has got his finger on the pulse of this team all the time and trying not to let their foot off the accelerator, because he knows right now they're playing well enough between the lines. It's what's between the ears. I use that line a lot, but that's what he's worried about, keeping focused, keeping motivated, and not getting too full of themselves.
And you look at they're playing well in between the lines, but they've got enough that they've got to worry about, that they got to improve in between the lines. Look, you got to get better on third down on offense. You got to cut out these big run plays that have been gashing you the last couple of weeks. They've got enough issues that I think keeps them on the straight and narrow, because even though they've won 5 games in a row, there are glaring mistakes on film that will get you beat by some of these teams. Look, Buffalo's getting better. Buffalo now has Kelvin Benjamin, and the Carolina Panthers don't have him, which is, I'm sure we're going to talk about, because that's a curious trade.
Strange trade.
Curious trade, because who's their number 1 receiver now? Devin Funchess?
Devin Funchess, yes. And look, they have not been. I think they've kind of fallen out of love with Kelvin Benjamin, going back to last year when he was overweight. He's got ability. There's no doubt. We've seen him play now for a few years, but he's inconsistent as well. He'll drop a key pass. Has trouble with his weight. So there's some things, but what do you have better than him? That's the question. I don't think they've got a whole lot.
It's like they're waiting on Greg Olsen to come back in a couple of weeks, and Ed Dixon, he's going to have to be a stud for the next couple of weeks. I mean, he's not going to be catching 180 yards a game like he did a couple of weeks ago. But look, and yet still, you feel like the Saints are this overwhelming favorite. But both of these teams in Carolina and Atlanta are right on the Saints' heels. Like, they can't afford a slip-up at this point because, A, they dug themselves a hole, but that was part of the schedule. Look, Minnesota and New England, we all knew that would be a tough 1-2 punch, and they lost those 2 games. Now, let's see. Carolina, they still have to play Minnesota, so that's a game where, all right, that's going to be a tough game. That's not like that they have this slouch of a schedule. Carolina does. Falcons' schedule's not that friendly. Look, they've got games the next 3 weeks. They've got a game at Carolina. They'll host Dallas, and then they travel to Seattle. So this 3-game stretch is kind of a make or break stretch, because if they start to crumble there, and say Carolina and the Saints keep it on the same level as far as winning games. Atlanta could be out of it because, like I said, they've got that first place schedule, so that's why they're playing Dallas, and that's why they're playing a Seattle as opposed to the Saints. Who did they get? The Rams, and who else did they get in the? They get Washington as opposed to the first place schedule.
Yeah, and the Rams turned out to be not a great matchup, obviously, but look, I think the Saints. The encouraging thing about the Saints that I think is going to prevent them from going into like a long funk, barring some kind of injury to some key player, is that they're better in so many different areas. They're improved in the running game. They're improved on defense. I think their special teams are improved. So that allows them, as we've seen already during the stretch, to win games in other ways besides Drew Brees throwing for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's the only way they could win in the past. Now they can grind out a slugfest or a slobber knocker, as you said.
I love slobber knocker.
Like they did on Sunday. And so they can get in these kind of games like they probably will get into when they play at Buffalo and have a chance. I don't know if they'll win or not, but they have a chance. In the past, it was kind of one way or the highway, and that's encouraging, and I think it's going to prevent them from going into a prolonged slump.
Yeah, I would agree. Let's take a break right here on the show, and when we get back, more NFC South talk, specifically the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Of course, they're coming to town this weekend to take on the New Orleans Saints. Noon kickoff in the Superdome, and we will talk next with Tampa Bay Times Buccaneers beat writer Greg Auman, so he will come on here next. So don't go anywhere. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Your shot at $1,000 now. Text the keyword bank to
Got it working fine.
200. You'll get a text.
What I was looking for when I kept going back and forth was I was going for the publish. The publish button didn't pop up.
200.
No, it takes a little bit.
That's what I was looking for. I'm like, where's the publish? Where's the publish?
Food
Yeah,
and the
on the
music
screen,
of
it'll take a
Tanya
little
Boyd
bit to
Cannon
pop up.
and Box Office Giants. That's the second annual Wine on the River, November 11th at Audubon
All right.
Aquarium Plaza. Get your ticket at wineontherivernola.com. Presented by Southern Glazers, WGNO, and NOLA 38.
If you need a payday loan fast, try LendUp.com. Apply in minutes on your phone or computer and you could have cash in your account fast. LendUp.com, the better payday loan. LendUp.com, subject to availability in your state. LendUp is a licensed credit services
Sorry,
organization,
more
not a
credit for
direct
the
lender
Texans.
in Ohio and Texas.
You got a fetish for my love.
Selena Gomez
I just read a
is
story,
Billboard
by the way.
Magazine's Woman of the Year. A spokesman said that Gomez
Ken Belson
inspires
might be good.
All right, we got Greg Auman.
Maybe I'll try and get him
be
on.
afraid to use
'Cause,
their voices. It's
I just read a story about
a great year. Pop singer
where
who
they
has
said
dominated
Jerry
the charts with
Jones
hits
wants
like
to be the
Bad Liar,
commissioner.
Fetish,
That's
and
why
It Ain't
he's
Me.
doing it. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Yeah. That's like one thing his
Talk
ego.
show host Wendy Williams
won.
recouping after fainting live
And now
on
he's trying to
air
oust
during
him
her
so he can
Halloween
become the
broadcast.
grand poobah.
The New Jersey native passing out 48 minutes into
Yeah,
her
Dave, you said
program
we
while
got
she was
Greg?
dressed as the statue of
Yeah, Greg Auman.
Yeah, Greg Auman.
Black
yeah,
and
cool.
ran
Thanks, bud.
commercials after the break. Back on air and explained she overheated and passed out. Hollywood
Daryl Trapp's on
speculating
the Bucks.
Netflix may be
Yeah.
conjuring up a House of Cards spin-off. 2018 will be the last season of the political drama following lead Kevin Spacey's sexual misconduct scandal. Michael Jackson's mother, Catherine, beginning the process of ending her guardianship of Jackson's youngest
Cap's doing
child,
a
known as Blanket.
journal for
E!
him.
News reports attorneys for 87-year-old Catherine Jackson
Man.
filed papers stating that she is no longer needed to fulfill
that
the
smells
duties.
like
In 2012, Catherine
Greg
Jackson and
talked to
T.J.
Josh.
Jackson were appointed
Yeah.
co-guardians
Yeah.
of Michael Jackson's three
Yeah.
children.
Well,
Prince
Tap's a great
Jackson,
guy,
Paris
isn't she?
Jackson, now older than 18. Blanket,
Oh, no, yeah,
his
yeah,
real
yeah.
name is
Yeah, I read
Prince
him a lot.
Michael Jackson. The second is now 15. That's Entertainment. Jennifer Pulsoni, NBC News Radio.
Did you know 22 Americans die each day waiting for organ transplants, most of them for kidneys? The good news is
we
that
only have 7
MatchingDonors.com is helping to change
God.
that. MatchingDonors.com is a
I don't understand it. They
501c3
got all kinds of great
nonprofit
players.
organization that links organ donors with people in
Makes you wonder
desperate
about
need
the
of kidneys and
coordinator.
other transplants. And now you
I mean, they
don't
got
need to donate a
probably
kidney
more
to save a
defensive
life.
talent
You
than
can
the
donate
Saints.
your
Some
both.
usually talent.
10 seconds.
100% of the proceeds
Vince
going to help
Guy,
save the
those two
lives of people
linebackers.
needing organ transplants. Visit
Hargraves.
MatchingDonors.com or call 800-385-0422.
I want a white t-shirt, some khaki pants, I'm all stars.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Jubilee, oh, we made that hit.
Wobble Wobble Wednesday here on Dunc and Holder. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here with you at our NOLA.com Times-Picayune Studios, 32nd floor of Canal Place at the foot of Canal Street. And joining us right here, and soon to be joining us here in New Orleans in a couple of days, Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times covers the Buccaneers as the Saints will take on the Tampa Bay Bucs in an NFC South matchup. And Greg, just before we head you on, of course we have some Tampa Bay stats and such, and one number just totally popped out off the screen, and I was stunned and floored. And I'm assuming that's one of the issues with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Last in the league in sacks with 7, and I'm just kind of befuddled. And it's, look, the next closest teams that have 11, 12, and obviously that has to be one of the major issues. And what can you put your finger on their inability of affecting the quarterback?
Yeah, it's a major problem down here, and injuries have probably played a role in it. I mean, they were hoping to get a lot out of Noah Spence, who was a second-round pick last year. He had a sack fumble in the opener, looked like he was on his way, and then re-injured his shoulder in the second game, tried to play through it, and he's on IR now. So he's been hurt. Jacquez Smith was a guy they really hoped would get back and be healthy. He's been hurt and is now gone. And the others just haven't performed. I mean, Robert Ayers is getting paid pretty well to be a pass rusher, and he has 1 sack. Will Golston, they re-signed in the offseason. He's always been more of a run stopper, but he hasn't even really been tackling very well. So, yeah, they got 7 sacks as a team. At one point Sunday, Julius Peppers got to Winston, and Peppers, who's 37, now has more sacks than the Bucs do as a team. So it's an issue, and it's something that they've tried. They've tried different looks, like a 3-man front, and it just hasn't resulted in them getting to the quarterback no matter what they do.
Yeah, Greg, and looking at the other side of the ball, I mean, I know the offseason there was a big push. They brought in Deshaun Jackson in free agency, drafted O.J. Howard out of Alabama. So we thought this was going to really give enough weapons for Jameis Winston to kind of take the next step and become one of these elite guys in the league. But I think there's been a little bit of growing pains for this offense. I mean, you tell me what's going on offensively. 3 points last week.
Yeah, I mean, they're struggling in a bad way, and especially in the first half. I mean, the last 3 games, they have 6 points total in the first half, 0, 6, and 0. I think they had 7 in the first half the week before that. It's just a lot of slow starts. Here in the last 2 games, I mean, Jameis Winston hurt his shoulder, so he's playing through an injury right now. They have to kind of decide today, you know, how much they want to have him continue in a limited capacity. In the last 2 weeks, he hasn't thrown on Wednesday or on Thursday, has practiced on Friday and played on Sunday. And against Buffalo, that worked great. And he had 3 touchdowns in the second half and gave them the lead with 3 minutes to go, threw for, 380 yards. But then last week, it didn't look like it worked at all. Never got in rhythm with his receivers, had like 98 yards passing in the fourth quarter, going into the fourth quarter. And again, for whatever reason, they're not scoring at all. They at least had been an offense that could generate yards, but they're not even doing that right now. So they got to figure things out, and they have to hope they get the Saints defense that was out there in week 1 and 2 and not the one that's been showing up the last 6.
Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Greg, you mentioned Jameis Winston. Of course, he's going to be front and center with all of this franchise quarterback, #1 overall pick. Shoulder injury aside, how much growth have you seen from him, and has it been enough from, say, years 1, 2 to 3?
Yeah, I mean, he's probably guilty by association right now, and I think the fact that the Bucs are 2 and 5 makes it hard to appreciate any nuanced development that he's had as a quarterback. I think he's definitely overall been better with turnovers, and that's probably where I would have said that the biggest leap had to be made for him. I think he had 17, 18 interceptions last year, and had 2 last week. I think that puts him at 5 or 6 for the year. So he's definitely made progress in limiting his mistakes, but he hasn't been a good third down passer. They haven't been, especially in the first half, an efficient offense. I think the red zone numbers are okay for them, but yeah, they're just, I mean, this is, people thought adding Deshaun Jackson and adding O.J. Howard, getting Doug Martin back, potentially to the Doug Martin of 2015, lots of expectations about this being one of the best offenses in the NFL, and it just hasn't been that.
So, Greg, I saw where attendance was down for the game last week against the Panthers, and we know the team's struggled to make the playoffs. It's been all the way, 2007, I think, last time they made the playoff. What is the atmosphere like down there? Is Dirk Cutter and maybe the front office in trouble if they don't turn this thing around at the end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, they've lost 4 in a row, and the last time this franchise lost 4 in a row, they fired their head coach. So, unfortunately, they're in a cycle right now where they sign coaches to 5-year deals and fire them after 2 years. They did it with Greg Auman, they did it with Lovie Smith, and this is year 2 for Dirk Cutter. It would have seemed like he was doing fine, but, I mean, if they're 2-5 and they don't pull out of the spin they're in, this ownership has kind of shown they can be decisive when they need to be. The GM here, Jason Light, is probably on thinner ice than Cutter is just because he doesn't have as much left on his contract. But yeah, right now, the free agents that they've brought in haven't necessarily played to expectations in terms of the contracts they were given. Draft picks, are kind of wobbly in the last year or two. So once they get winning again, everything's fine. But when you've lost 4 in a row, there's all kinds of fingers getting pointed.
Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Let's try to spin some sort of positivity out of this interview. Like, I'm looking at Mike Evans, and I'm looking at Mike Evans. Look, he's got Pro Bowl numbers right now: 39 catches, 519 yards, 4 touchdowns. And I know you guys are going to be going in the locker room in a little bit. Your first day of media access, but how curious are you to watch, say, a potential matchup between Evans and Marshawn Lattimore, who is, to me, right now, defensive rookie of the year for the Saints, and honestly one of the better cornerbacks in the NFL right now?
Yeah, no, I'm very intrigued by it, and I'm curious to see what Evans has to say. I mean, Evans has gone up against, I think he had 4 Pro Bowlers in the first 6 games. Had Patrick Peterson in Arizona, had Janoris Jenkins with the Giants, had I'm trying to think who else he went up against early on. Good players that he's gone up against and battled. I think his numbers probably right now are a little bit down from where they were a year ago, but I think we had expected some kind of drop-off just because you add Deshaun Jackson. He last year, so much of last year, it was just Mike Evans and Cameron Brate as the real viable options, especially in the red zone. So Mike Evans right now, I think the main people are wondering about is why he hasn't been able to connect with Winston and get yards after the catch. It seems like every catch that Mike Evans makes right now, he's falling to make a catch or over the shoulder and catching it and being tackled. And one of the things he really wanted this year to separate himself was literally to separate himself and be able to get away and break loose for big gains. Deshaun Jackson's probably done a better job of that so far this year, but it's the area where he can make the biggest improvement for sure.
Yeah, Greg, one thing I think our listeners will be interested in hearing about is the development of Kendall Beckwith, who's, I guess, at strong side linebacker right now. Quan Alexander, another LSU graduate, in the middle at linebacker for this team. Beckwith is really, I think he might be the leading tackler, at least was early on in the season. What have you seen from him, and was he expected to play this big a role?
No, I think Kendall has been a big surprise and a pleasant surprise, much the same way Quan was 2 years ago. I think when they drafted Kendall, they were thrilled. They traded up into the 3rd round to get Kendall Beckwith, and I think kind of took advantage of that ACL he had and maybe a little bit of a doubt because of his injury status. I remember thinking that he'd start the year on like the PUP list or when they might be able to get him, and just made an amazing recovery from his ACL. Was here from the first day of training camp and has really impressed. I mean, they've lost, linebacker's probably one of the best positions on this team. They lost Quan Alexander for 4 games. They lost Levante David for 2 games. And Beckwith really allowed them to weather those losses without a huge drop-off. Like you said, I think going into last week at least, was leading all rookies in tackles, has made big plays. If you guys know Kendall, just really a mature guy, comes off like he's been in the league 4 years and not 2 months. And he and Quan are both guys. I mean, they're trying to rejigger this defense just to get them both on the field more often, because so often in the NFL right now, if you're a Sam linebacker, you're on the field maybe 30-35% of the downs, because so often teams are in 3 receiver sets when you're in a nickel, and they mess around with a 3-3-5. They've done all kinds of alternate fronts just trying to get him to be a more regular part of this defense when they already have 2 good linebackers in Quan and Levante David. No, very much a pleasant surprise, much the same way Quan's been down here.
Greg, one more and we'll let you run. What do you think this team needs to do, say, 1, 2, 3, to turn this thing around? Because it seems like to me, if they lose this game in New Orleans, Saints would be 6-2, Tampa would be 2-6, and all but eliminated essentially from being in contention for this division at the halfway point.
Yeah, they've got to win Sunday. I mean, if they win Sunday, as bad as it is, they're right where they were a year ago. They were a 3-5 team last year, won 5 in a row, and put themselves in position to be a playoff team. I don't know that the schedule is going to allow them to do that, but yeah, once you're 2-6, I mean, a week ago, their big thing was, hey, there haven't been any division games left, only 2 back. You know, now you're 3 back, and you still have 5 division games left. But yeah, if they can't beat New Orleans on Sunday, it's hard to take them seriously as any relevant part of this division, the NFL. You know, now you're starting to talk about where you're going to be in the draft, who might come back, who might get fired. Those are the storylines when you're a 2-6 team. So they have to win there. And I think it starts just with getting the offense and the defense both to show up in the same game. I mean, they had the offense carrying the torch for about 3-4 weeks there. Sunday with Carolina, the defense finally shows up and really held Carolina in check very well, and the offense has disappeared. So if they can just get to where they have a good first half and can stay in their game plan, which means a lot of running the ball, keeping the ball out of New Orleans' hand, out of Drew Brees' hand, that'll help a lot. But if they get behind, 10-0 in the first quarter, as they have been, now you're looking at a steady dose of Ingram and Kamara, and it's just going to be hard for them to get out of that tailspin they're in. So this is a very big game for everything the rest of the season for this team.
Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They'll take on the Saints Sunday, noon, kickoff in the Superdome. Greg, appreciate the time. Great insight as always. Thanks for jumping on the show once again. And just a word of advice, the Superdome was a damn blizzard last week. Bring a coat. Seriously, bring a coat.
I will. Herbie warned me too.
Yes.
I'm well dressed for it, even if I don't need to be out. It's like 80 outside and like 45 in the building.
And Greg, one other word of advice. I give this advice to every visiting reporter. You've been to New Orleans enough to know, stay away from primary colored drinks in the quarter. Stick to brown or clear.
Hey, Greg, appreciate it as always, buddy.
Advice.
You got it. All right, that's Greg Auman from Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times. Does a great job over there. I mean, they bang up job covering the Tampa Bay Bucs. So interesting times in Tampa. Once again, I was almost forgot how long it's been since Tampa's even been to the playoffs. 2007,
I was too. That surprised me. It seemed like they snuck in there a few years ago and were one and done, but I was wrong. So there's got to be some heat on Dirk Cutter and Jason Licht.
And 5-year contracts, and they just can them after 2. That's the standard operating procedure. That's amazing.
Goes back to that decision to draft Roberto Aguayo 2 years ago. That was kind of ominous.
Kind of.
Infamous is a better word.
Yeah, awful. How about we just call it that? So we'll talk more NFL coming up next, and then we'll switch gears around 10:45. We'll talk Tulane, Cincinnati, and World Series with Todd Graffagnini. So come on back. Sports1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
Your forecast
7
on
sacks.
Sports 1280.
I didn't know if
New
Spence
Orleans.
was hurt. That makes sense.
This
and
report
then
is brought to
Smith
you
was
by
the other kind of
Louisiana
speed
Water.
rusher. He never came
From
back.
the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce
Yeah,
Katz.
they
Through
got
your
no
Wednesday
pass- they'll be
afternoon, we
dead
are
if they have no
expecting
pass
partly to
rushing
mostly
breeze.
cloudy skies.
They'll
A
pick
few
'em
spotty
apart.
showers, wind
Yeah.
coverage at 30%. Today's high at 78. Now tonight, overnight lows drop to the mid to upper 60s under partly cloudy skies. And for Thursday and Friday, I'm going to still hold in a 20% chance of rain. Not that big of a deal, but it's not going to feel like November. In fact, temperatures in the lower 80s with overnight lows staying in the 60s. Dry and warm continued weather into the weekend. From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz with your Weather Authority forecast.
Listen up, folks. Mega Millions just powered up. The starting jackpot is now $40 million. Visit any lottery retailer and pick up your Mega Millions ticket today for your chance to win. Must be at least 21 to purchase.
It's the second annual Wine on the River, presented by Southern Glazers, WGNO TV ABC, and NOLA 38, the CW. Join us Saturday, November 11th at Audubon Aquarium Plaza. Tickets on sale now for only $49, so get your tickets today. Enjoy wines from around the world, great food, and live entertainment. Buy your tickets today online at wineontherivernola.com. Proceeds benefit the Louisiana Hospitality Foundation.
This is Dr. Ned Hallowell for ADHD Awareness Month. Many people think that having ADHD means something is wrong with them, when in fact, if managed properly, it can be your greatest asset. I know because I have it myself. People with ADHD have race car brains with bicycle brakes. Once they learn to control their brakes, they'll win races. For tips on managing ADHD, listen to my weekly podcast at distractionpodcast.com.
The World Series is headed to a decisive Game 7. The Dodgers topping the Astros 3-1 in Game 6 at Chavez Ravine, and on the best-of-7 Fall Classic at 3 games apiece. Manager Dave Roberts on closing out another tight game last night.
Make sure that we put our guys in the right spots, trying to tack on some runs, but I guess intense is the word.
The final game of the Major League Baseball season for all the chips
against the
tonight
spread
in
last
LA.
week.
You Darvish goes for the Dodgers opposed to Houston.
The only one I won was the last game where I was 0-12 going to the Monday Night Football. It was unbelievable. I don't think I've ever had a game week like that.
Oh my gosh! Thank God you didn't. We don't do picking every game.
It was brutal, man.
Oh my word!
I was so happy I didn't get shut out. I won the last game.
All right, 30 seconds.
My Georgia gets number one in the first
you're lucky we didn't
rankings of the season.
I know. Pick every NFL game.
Followed by Bama.
Glad would have come in here.
Glad with his little
NBC News right
I picked the Saints obviously to win, but I didn't.
Atlantis.
What was the spread? 9,
expresses
8,
itself as
9.
an endless.
They didn't cover.
They didn't cover.
I had them covering. I mean, it was right on the line.
Yeah, but I had them winning by 11.
Yeah.
At heart.
Book by November 13th for the best winter rates at 1-800-Atlantis or AtlantisBahamas.com.
New Orleans sports talk about your favorite teams. Sports 1280.
Duncan Holder back at you. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan here, and just talked with Greg Auman from the Tampa Bay Times, covers the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just a good reminder, if you missed it, you missed any of our shows, sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And YouTube is now hot and fresh, no buffering. Jeff got the magic tool, and so we've got no issues with YouTube now. So we finally, it's taken, 3.5 months to get this thing actually like a well-oiled machine? Finally.
Yeah, well, I mean, the complication was, and I'm sure nobody cares other than our YouTube followers, but the complication was, here we are in this incredible office, right, downtown New Orleans. If you haven't seen the NOLA.com offices, they're spectacular. We're on the 31st floor.
Well, technically, we are on 32.
Okay.
Because downstairs is 31.
We're on the top floor
Yes.
of a 32-story building at the foot of Canal Street, overlooking the French Quarter, the Mississippi River. You can see way into the West Bank. You almost feel like you can see the Gulf of Mexico. Spectacular views, highly state-of-the-art digital wiring here, everything that you would want in a new digital operation. But our Wi-Fi is spotty. So, like, everything that you need to put on YouTube is, spotty. Let's just put it that way. It's not perfect, and we were able to hardwire it, and now we don't have to worry about that, and we have a streamlined connection every day.
Absolutely. So no more nonsense, no more spinning wheel of hell that people don't have to worry about.
Exactly.
And this is not a good segue, but anyway, happy birthday, New Orleans Saints.
Yes,
they
I was going to bring that up.
51 today. Of course, All Saints Day, November 1st, which I don't remember the year. What year was it?
It was 66, November 1, 66, when Pete Rozelle came and made the speech, and I guess at the press conference at the Pontchartrain Hotel. It was in the restaurant in the basement at that time of the Pontchartrain Hotel. A packed room, and granted the franchise, and I bring this up all the time, and I know it sounds, well, you can make your own interpretation of it, but he awarded the team to the city of New Orleans. Then they went out and found an owner. And I've always gone back to that when I hear owners talk about their teams and how they hold cities hostage and move around and relocate to get stadiums. I really feel like these teams belong to the cities, not the owners. And case in point, when they awarded the new team to Houston, they granted a franchise to the city of Houston, and then Bob McNair was found in a search as an owner. You're basically a franchisee. That's what you are. It's no different than a Chick-fil-A restaurant in some ways, just a much more expensive and lucrative Chick-fil-A, but that's what they are. And so these owners, they suddenly think it's their team. I don't agree with that. They granted a team to New Orleans. John Meekum was found in a search, I guess, 2 months later, and he got to be the owner of the New Orleans Saints. So that's, again, I've got on my soapbox.
Well, I think owners probably feel differently because did they grant Carolina a team and then they found Jerry Richardson? Did they grant?
Yes, I think that's how they do it.
But so many of these owners, though, they did not come in when the team was first granted to a city. Like Art Modell's just going to pick up and move, and so he technically thinks it's his team. He can pick it up and move it wherever he wants to.
Well, I know, but my point is, the city is granted the team, not the owner. They didn't award the New Orleans Saints to John Meekum. They awarded an NFL franchise to the city of New Orleans, and then they found an owner. So they were giving a team to the city, and then they were going to find an owner. I don't think they should be allowed to move their teams. And let's face it, the NFL is involved. When somebody moves, the NFL kind of grants the wish privately to move. St. Louis Rams did not move without the backing of the NFL, no matter how hidden that backing was, or they were complicit in the move. My point is, the New Orleans Saints belong to the city of New Orleans, not Tom Benson, not John Meekum. I've always felt that way, and I know I'm against the grain, but that's just the way I feel. I feel like he has the lease on the team, and he owns it for a certain period of time, but this team belongs to the city and the state of Louisiana for that, and even more so here because the state of Louisiana owns the Superdome and basically gives the Saints a free rent. So all of the expenses that most teams incur, the state of Louisiana says, you know what, it's worth it for us to have a team here, and they just wipe it away. And so that's what's going to be interesting when they come up to this next renovation of the Superdome, which is going to be a major renovation, a lot of money involved. The Saints, and I will write this in a column, need to pony up. They need to put in more money. They haven't put in hardly any money, relatively speaking, towards any renovations of the Superdome over the years. I'd say total is probably less than $50 million. Now that's a lot of money to you and me, but in the grand scheme of things, when you see some of these new stadiums that are being built, we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars put up by their owners. So it's a partnership. So I would like to see more of a partnership done, considering all that the state of Louisiana and the city of New Orleans has done for the New Orleans Saints.
And given how much the team is worth now,
yes.
Come on, what is it, close to $2 billion? Is that right? Is
yes.
that how much? And that's on the low end of an NFL team.
Right, that's my point. And they have a very, very favorable lease from the state of Louisiana, and meanwhile the state of Louisiana is hemorrhaging money. We're in the red. It's no different than what the state did with the tax credits for the film industry. At some point, they need to even this thing out, considering our financial wherewithal in the state of Louisiana.
Look at you, Jeff.
Sorry, well, I know we were just talking about happy birthday, right?
Happy birthday, pony up the money.
Pony up the money after we give you the gift.
Pay for your own party. What's the matter with you?
What was cool, though, was the Saints tweeted out today. I'm sure it was Alex Restrepo, their social media maven or guru over there. The front page of the Times-Picayune, or maybe it was the State's item of the day when the announcement was made by Pete Rozelle, and the byline was Peter Finney, which was awesome. 51 years ago, Peter was I guess the beat. No, he couldn't have been a beat writer. He had to be a columnist then, but he wrote the story about the Saints coming to New Orleans.
Yeah, it was for the State's item. And okay. Yeah, so yep, Peter Finney. Hey, we're all trying to live up to the GOAT, and we will never live up to the GOAT. No. We just follow in his footsteps and try our best, honestly.
It's really cool to see that, though. It was cool today.
Absolutely. Why don't we take a break right here on the show, and when we get back, Todd Grappanini, the voice of the Tulane Green Wave, will join us. Oh, by the way, we didn't mention it yesterday, but they had the LSU-Tulane exhibition basketball game for hurricane relief. Tulane picked up the win over LSU last night.
I thought we should bring that up. We'll talk to Graf about that.
Yeah, I know he did not go. I think he went for the first half because, of course, the Dodgers were on. So.
I heard Tulane looked very good.
So we'll get his take on a little Tulane's basketball because, look, the college basketball season's coming up. And, of course, Tulane's going to be hosting Cincinnati this week. And I definitely want his panicked opinion on the World Series Game 7 tonight. Yu Darvish versus Lance McCullers. And as we know, that'll be 5 innings, and then it'll be all whoever comes out of the bullpen. We'll probably end up seeing Clayton Kershaw, I bet you, at some point. For an inning or two.
No doubt. Madison Bumgarner strategy.
Absolutely. So we'll talk with the Graph coming up here next. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder. Well, I figured at top of the 11 o'clock hour, I'll switch it over.
He's back in. He's in the end zone. He's got it in the end zone.
Yeah, that's a good one to talk about.
Yeah, like Saban's on the
left side out here. It's got him. Asking you shall receive. Oh, get it. We win.
This is Tulane football. The Cincinnati Bearcats come to town Saturday, November 4th. Catch all of the action right here on your home for the win.
Yeah, you know, I
Sports 1280 New Orleans.
I emailed.
Hi, I'm Lieutenant Governor Billy
Nungesser.
Louisiana is more than just a place to visit. It's our way of life. And that means being outdoors.
Burn me.
Join the nearly
That's always my fear. You go to these guys,
bike,
paddle, and they're like, wow,
hike
that's
our state parks.
So then Bonnell like tweet it out or something before the story comes out.
Louisiana has something to offer.
You know, because that's like one of those cool. It fit into a tweet.
To paddling at Fontainebleau, to exploring the ancient mountains of Poverty Point World Heritage Site.
Like I could do the research myself.
I was about to say you could do the research yourself. It would be taxing. Yeah.
I mean, not only do you have to just see what schools had guys in the top 5, you got to figure out what years they were in school because they could have been a top 5 pick.
Enjoying the day and
then they would have been in school a year
Coach,
earlier.
I want to throw you a wild card because you're a guy that can handle a wild card.
3 years later, they're drafted. I don't know.
Coach O this week, for some reason, brought up chicken on a stick was his favorite food when he was in Oxford with Ole Miss. Are you a food on a stick?
Your boy!
Yeah, it's great.
Chicken on a stick.
Speaking of, I was just looking at the depth chart in Tampa and saw, in Carolina, and saw one of the reasons they cited for trading.
We got the Graph.
They liked the development of Russell Shepard, who never played like crap at LSU because of Les didn't know how to use because he was a good perimeter player.
Well, I remember. Yeah, all these expectations for Russell Shepard.
I know. Well, if he came in with a good offense, he might have been okay.
Food on a stick is something that you want to take somewhere, right? I mean, you want to eat it on the run, and I seldom eat it, while moving.
I remember Les with his chicken on a stick story. I went and did a interview up in his office once, and he was eating like I might have got it like from Serrano's, and he had like
an ice cream.
He had like chicken fajitas, but he was just eating the chicken, and so he's just grabbing with his fingers. And then I walk in, and it's like, oh, it's Les, and I go shake his hand. He's just got like chicken.
New Orleans.
Slobber all over his hand. I'm like,
At 30 seconds.
So the name of one of my fantasy football teams has always been Stink Bombs by Les Miles.
Is there for 134 countries, including the US. To make a difference in a child's life, go to sosusa.org.
Put $1,000 in your hand. Win $1,000 every hour. Up to 16 times a day. Weekdays. Starting at 5 a.m. When you hear the keyword, text it to 200-200. Listen all day for a chance to put $1,000 in your hand on Sports 1280 New Orleans. This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280 New Orleans.
Welcome back, Dunc and Holder. Is he on the ledge? Is he even going to watch tonight because he's so nervous? Todd Grappanini, voice of the Tulane Green Wave, and diehard Dodgers fan. And Todd, I'm going to say this, that I have shown every person that I know that knows you the picture of you in just total panic in Game 4 when television cameras caught you in a big sigh. You're holding your breath. You haven't exhaled yet. I've showed every person I've ever known that has known you that picture. Just your heads up.
Yeah, I've seen the picture, obviously, Larry, and I can't even imagine what I was thinking of. I mean, I was probably... Well, I know what it was. I mean, it was a sigh of just, what in the hell am I doing here? I just, and the people in my section, God bless those people, because I warned them that I could literally have a stroke in front of all of them and would have remembered it for the rest of their lives, and I would have scarred them for life. What they had to put up with on Saturday night, I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I really wouldn't. But, hey, it's the World Series. You got to get it done.
Graf, I think it's a lock now. No way the Dodgers can lose.
Oh, yeah, Jeff, it's a lock. Attaboy. Jeff, I'm going to hang up on you.
Coming
your garbage.
Coming from Giants honk Jeff Duncan, who wants nothing more.
Mr. Torpedo.
It's over.
Yeah.
I don't even know why the Astros are showing up.
It's over. Yeah.
Poor Todd.
Unfortunately, there will be 9 innings tonight. I got to say, though, I really can't take it anymore. You always want to be in the World Series and experience this. But my mind is jello right now. It's just the intensity. Every pitch is huge. I mean, every pitch. And a 1-0 count or a 1-1 count could be the difference in a take or somebody hitting the ball the other way into the gap. I mean, the way this thing is going, it's been unbelievable. It does deserve to go 7 games. These are 2 outstanding teams. I have so much respect for the Astros. And just, being in that ballpark Saturday night and getting to see my team win a game in the World Series is something I'll never forget. But, I mean, it's coming down to it tonight. It's unbelievable.
Todd Grappanini, voice of the Tulane Green Wave, right here on Dunc and Holder. Todd, let's start off with last night's exhibition, LSU, Tulane. I know it doesn't count necessarily in the record books, but Tulane gets a win in basketball. Obviously, a good little jump start. And look, the Tulane men's basketball team, they obviously need any kind of jump start because last year was a major struggle, and I know expectations are a little bit higher. But just to be able to get a win against an in-state foe, of course, we all know Tulane fans typically don't like LSU fans, and LSU fans don't typically like Tulane fans. But Tulane getting a win last night, just kind of your overall thoughts on just them being able to get it done.
Yeah, and I was there for a half. I was wearing my Fernando Valenzuela jersey, and
of course,
our athletic director, Troy Dannon, came up to me and said, "What in the world are you doing here? I mean, what are you doing here?" And I got to watch my team play. I mean, the season starts next week. So, no, it was good. Tulane shot the ball very, very well. Shot 54%. I think we did see last night was Tulane's got to get a little more of an inside presence. Blake Paul is supposed to be someone this year who's going to be counted on down low, and he got in immediate foul trouble. So it was basically a perimeter game for Tulane, but they shot very well from beyond the arc. They shot 50%. So if you shoot 50%, you can kind of mask some of the ills if you can't get the ball down low. Tulane got killed on the boards last night, but LSU did not shoot the ball well at all, and that was really the ball game. Tulane was able to score a bunch of points, and when LSU was trying to come back, they were able to hold them off and just kind of keep LSU at bay. So it was really crazy, though, guys, because that was literally the first time in my entire life that I had seen LSU men's basketball on Ferret Street. It had never happened before. I'd never seen those uniforms in that building. So it was kind of cool. It was done for a great cause, and tell you what, anytime you can get an extra exhibition in before opening night, that's big too. Tulane's playing Loyola on Thursday, so 2 exhibitions before opening night is something that we really haven't seen. So anytime you can get on the court, it's good. Anytime you can have more points than the other team, it's good. So I think Mike Dunleavy has got stuff to work on, obviously, but it's a good start.
Well, Graf, I was going to ask you, what should realistic expectations be for Mike Dunleavy's team in year 2? I mean, do you think this is a team that the needle's pointed upward? I mean, obviously last night was encouraging, 5 players in double figures, and you even mentioned Paul getting in foul trouble. What do you expect this year from Tulane?
Well, I'm just going to tell you what Mike Dunleavy has gone public with. I mean, we won 6 games last year, Jeff. That's a pretty long season. He has said publicly, and he's told me privately, he'd be really, really disappointed if we did not win at least 15 games this year. So that's borderline 500, right around there. And, you know, to have those guys that transferred last year who had to sit out, Jordan Cornish and Samir Shayich, you know, those guys played a big role last night. And to have them, and I tell you what, Tulane fans are going to fall in love with this Caleb Daniels kid, who is a St. Augustine product. You know, get a local kid playing hoops coming to Tulane. That's big. And you know, he scored 11 points last night. He made some freshman mistakes, but this kid's going to be special. And it's something that you can really kind of cornerstone a program around. And, you know, it's kind of high praise for someone who hadn't played a real game yet, but he has just looked really, really good during practice. Coach Dunleavy has, you know, told people around him also that Daniels is the real deal. So, and look, Mike Dunleavy knows what he's talking about in that aspect. So, I just think we got a pretty good mix, Jeff, of older guys and newer guys, and I just think the talent, the sheer talent is there. We were just trying to piece it together last year. Now, when we get into the meat of the American schedule, and it's a really tough conference, of course. Now Wichita State's coming on board this year, so it's going to get very, very tough. But I like the direction. They've had a year under Dunleavy in the system. And it's just practices are just much more flowing, if you will, than last year. When he had to do a lot of teaching last year, this year you see a lot of the players doing the teaching. And as Coach Dunleavy says, and this time when they're teaching, they're actually doing the right thing instead of saying the wrong thing. So it's been a lot of fun to watch these guys kind of work their way into it.
Todd Graffagnini, voice of the Tulane Green Wave, right here on Dunc and Holder. Of course, Tulane is we're the flagship station for all things Tulane football and men's basketball. Todd, homecoming this week, taking on Cincinnati at Auman Stadium, 3 o'clock kickoff. And look, the Wave have kind of hit a little downslide. Lost 3 in a row. Tough game up in Memphis. Bad conditions, but lost 56-26. And yet, Todd, the Green Wave are 3-1 at home, so they've obviously, and the only loss was a tight loss to
2 minutes
South Florida. So, just your overall thoughts on this game coming up against Cincinnati on Saturday.
Got to have it, Larry. Just absolutely got to have it. You know, they're still in line to go to a postseason game, go to a bowl game, but got to have it. And if the Wave can't figure it out against Cincinnati, it's going to be a tough last month. But this is a team, Cincinnati, who has struggled on both sides of the ball this year, and they just got to take advantage. And we'll see. And I like what I've seen the first 2 days in practice. Jonathan Banks, who really didn't take a whole lot of reps last week with some jam fingers on his right throwing hand, has taken much more of the reps during practice the last couple days. He's still not 100%
1 minute
to the imagination, but it's been good to see him out there. And I just, again, like you talked about, at home, I like the way Tulane has played this year. So, like I said, you got to have this game for a lot of reasons. And Wave's got to come out ready to go on Saturday.
Todd Graffagnini, the voice of the Tulane Green Wave. Of course, you can listen to his call of the game against Cincinnati, 3 o'clock kickoff, and I know you guys do 2 o'clock pregame right here on your flagship station for Tulane men's basketball and football. So, all right, Todd, appreciate the time and good luck tonight.
Thanks, Larry. By the way, the Willie Fritz show has moved up an hour tonight due to Game 7, so we're going 6 to 7 tonight and not 7 to 8.
Todd makes the programming move.
Willie Fritz did not want me to be looking at the television while I was asking him questions like I did a week ago for Game 1.
10 seconds.
I like it. So, all right, Todd, appreciate it.
Thanks,
Hour
Brad.
number 2 coming up. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
It's hilarious.
Hilarious. Sorry, Willie. We're moving the show up.
My son
I'm
Aiden
going to cancel the
has
show.
asthma. Secondhand smoke has triggered his asthma
hilarious.
so badly,
Sorry, Willie.
he ended
God,
up in the emergency room.
Man, Jeff, you were taunting the poor Graf.
A whole bunch of medications.
And he did.
My tip to you is don't be
love
shy
it.
about telling people not to smoke around your kids.
Half of U.S. kids are exposed to secondhand smoke. If you or someone you know wants help, call 1-800-QUIT-NOW. A message from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and CDC.
In Africa, 5-year-old Chiru has no choice. She and millions like her walk miles a day for dirty water. But together, we can end their walk by providing clean water close by. Instead of spending hours walking to get water that makes them sick, girls can be in a classroom and moms will gain back time to care for their families. Sons and daughters can grow up strong, finally free of sicknesses. It's true. When you just add water, you change a life. Learn more at worldvision.org.
WODT WNOE FM HD2 New Orleans. Listen on the free iHeartRadio app. Search Sports 1280. Fox Sports trending now.
So who will be the Patriots' backup quarterback? Tom Brady's former backup, Jimmy Garoppolo, shipped to the 49ers earlier this week before the NFL trade deadline. So free agent quarterback Brian Hoyer coming in to visit with the Patriots later today. Back to the Niners for a moment. Kyle Shanahan says Garoppolo is not likely to play this Sunday for the Niners against Arizona. Broncos coach Vance Joseph told the team this morning Brock Osweiler will get to start at quarterback Sunday in Philadelphia. And the Chiefs announced they are removing linebacker Tamba Hali from the PUP list. He's been there with a knee injury. He will return to practice with the team later today. Bills acquired receiver Kelvin Benjamin from the Panthers for a couple of draft picks. Browns and Bengals thought they'd agreed on a deal that would have sent A.J. McCarron from Cincinnati to Cleveland, but they didn't finalize it and get the paperwork in before the trade deadline. I'm Deb Carson.
I bet you didn't know this. Broadcast radio reaches more.
All right, 4 minutes.
TV. Yeah, AM, FM radio. The radio that's free in your car, your kitchen,
did we do
your
something?
office.
Because we
Broadcast radio reaches more adults, teens, and millennials. More of everyone. More shoppers. Broadcast radio reaches 93% of Americans every week. That's bigger than TV, Facebook, and Google. If you're a marketer who needs to reach new fans, visit iHeartMedia.com for the one place everyone is listening. AM, FM radio.
Home prices just keep going up. The S&P K-Share Home Price Index jumped 6.1%.
And we already had it up, as usual, ahead of me.
Data. That was the biggest annualized increase in more than 3 years. It's all about high demand as supply is close to a 20-year low, and with little to buy, pending home sales hit a 3-year low in September.
While part of that may have been due to the heavy hurricane season, sales have been lower annually for 5 of the past 6 months, and prices just continue to rise.
The only way out is to build more. And right now we are not nearly keeping up with the demand for home ownership or for the rental part of the market.
The trouble is a lack of labor. Subcontractors are heading south to rebuild after the hurricanes, and that makes building everywhere else more expensive.
NBC's Diana Olick reporting, the world might soon have a glut of large shipping vessels. The Wall Street Journal says dozens of new mega vessels that can move 20,000 containers each are under construction, set for delivery by 2020, and some analysts think operators will have to cut prices below the break-even level. Optimists say rising demand will absorb the new capacity. Way too much of another good thing, restaurants. The U.S. has a glut of them, too. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says the number of eating and drinking establishments hit 620,000 nationwide in the first quarter, about 80,000 more than 10 years ago. And it's growing at twice the population rate. Analysts tell the New York Times the explosive growth started in the early 2000s as Wall Street started putting money into more tangible enterprises following the dot-com bust. Sales are still up nationally, but the rate of growth has hit a 7-year low. Fast food and other chain restaurants are increasingly turning to booze to boost growth. Industry analysts think alcohol could help fast food move beyond breakfast and lunch and attract a dinner crowd. Among those adding beer, wine, and spirits to more outlets, Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, Shake Shack, Starbucks, and Chipotle. Consumer and Business News, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Are you taking Viagra for ED? Well, now you can get sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $40 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-853-6375. That number again, 800-853-6375.
Illegal Mexican
10
immigrants
leaves
living
could be
near
on
the
the
California-Mexico border have a greater chance of having mental disorders than the rest of the U.S.
And it's like,
population.
at
A
some
Rice
point I wanna
University
give,
study
like,
found that nearly 1 out of 4
Lattimore,
Mexican immigrants
Sunday
have a
Colin
mental
Love,
disorder.
but I feel like
Depression,
we've written about
panic
them so many
disorder,
times
and
lately.
generalized anxiety disorder
need
were
to,
the
like,
most prevalent illnesses.
Yeah.
Researchers
More
said that
established.
language
Yeah,
barriers,
and I don't wanna
fear
talk-
of
Should've done like
deportation,
a-
discrimination, and family separation.
Oh, I'm gonna do that.
are
Well, because I'm gonna
factors.
wait till
Some exciting news about
I'm
cerebral
doing
palsy.
mid-season stuff
Apparently,
all next
children
week.
with
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, I
CP
saw a
can
bunch of them on the
benefit
internet
from their
this
own
week because-
umbilical
Yeah,
cord
they had a
blood.
bye week.
Researchers
Yeah, I'm gonna
at
do,
Duke
like,
University
report
Medical
card,
Center
and then we're
found
gonna-
an
I'm gonna do a bunch of
infusion of
stuff.
blood cells from the umbilical cord could improve brain
Low-hanging
connectivity
fruit.
and motor function. Researchers think the cells can influence the formation of new nervous system connections. Health update: Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
Zika is still a threat, and its effect on an unborn child can be devastating. To prevent Zika, use insect repellent and condoms and dump standing water. Let's keep stopping Zika. Visit cdc.gov/prevent Zika. This message from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
$1,000 in your hand? Sounds good, doesn't it? The next keyword is minutes away on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Hour number 2 of Dunc and Holder. Been talking Saints. Bucks been talking some Tulane athletics. Now we're going to switch gears a little bit to college football. Of course, LSU, Alabama. 7 o'clock kickoff Saturday night. And Jeff, I'm going to unfortunately have to call out 2 friends of mine.
Okay.
Saturday night, I have 2 separate friends getting married. Saturday night, LSU, Bama, 2 friends getting married.
That's uncalled for. Preposterous. Totally negligent thinking. You don't get married the night of a big game like that.
Just no regard.
And there's plenty of time, right? When was this wedding set up? Do you know either one of them?
Probably a while ago. I'm not sure. And I'm like speechless. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do?
You're going to be taking a lot of breaks going out to the lobby trying to find the game.
Or I might just
Most people
stand
do.
in the lobby and watch it on my phone.
Right.
Something
And
like that.
That's not a bad call. That's a sort of a Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm dilemma.
Larry
Right?
David, yes.
Right?
That is right up his alley.
Technically, you're at the wedding, you're showing support, but you're taking care of business too. It is part of your job to watch these games.
This is true, and I'm going to be gracing them with my presence at their weddings.
Right.
Plural.
How
Two
are you
weddings.
going to do 2 weddings? How are you going to do that?
Well, I think we're going to attend one. We're going to go to the ceremony, and the other one we're going to go to the reception. So it's at least they see one of them sees us as they walk down the aisle. We can wave, and then that's our appearance. And then we got to. It's just what do you want me to do? And then I could just put a cardboard cutout of me somewhere and just pretend like I'm there and just go watch the game somewhere.
Yeah, well, I've not been married, but I'm assuming it's such a whirlwind night that your head's spinning around so much and you're such sensory overload, you don't really know who's there and who isn't.
No, you don't.
Because it's just an overwhelming, right?
It is
experience.
absolutely overwhelming when you get married. You barely have time to eat, much less worry about who was there and who wasn't, and it's just a mash of people, and because everyone wants to talk to you, so
Right.
it's just a mash of people everywhere. And it's like I said, I'll just put a cardboard cutout of me somewhere. That'll be fine, right?
I think
that
that'll
should
work. I think that'll work, and then you get to watch the game, which is a high priority.
Absolutely.
I didn't say higher. I said high.
It is a high priority. But
Yes.
Look, I will still attend, but look,
come on,
in a
man.
certain fashion, I will attend.
Although I would say this, in past years, 5, 6, 7 years ago, LSU Bama was one thing, but like most of the LSU players are saying, when you haven't won in 7 years, it's been 7 years, 6 games, and we all know what's going to happen. I mean, like I'm going to cover the game. LSU, I think, is going to give it the good old college try, but LSU's program is not on the same level right now as Alabama's. And I know that LSU's ranked 19th in the first poll, But I just can't see them keeping it close. I really don't.
And was it Devin White was saying that is basically Alabama's like your big brother and they're just beating us up and you're just basically trying to pull off the kind of the upset as the little brother at this point?
That's a sensitive subject for me. Very sensitive.
Is it? Why is that?
Because that came up years ago in the Kentucky-Louisville rivalry.
Oh.
Eddie Sutton, the coach of Kentucky then, right before they got put on probation, I might add, NCAA probation for the millionth time, said that Louisville is a lot like their little brother, and it's stuck forever. Of course, Kentucky fans love that and used it for decades. So I'm not sure Devin White wants to use that analogy. It's not a good one. It'll stick with LSU for a while.
But it's true.
Well, I know, but
it's okay if you call yourself out.
I don't know. I don't think you want to call yourself little brother. I don't know. You're trying to beat the team. I don't know.
It's just reality. Just like Mark Ingram, I sucked. Well, that's what LSU has sucked against Alabama. Period. That's it. That's all it is. And that quote, I guess, has come up with some steam, and our own Ron Higgins writing about it, and it basically calling out our own sister website, AL.com. I
love Ron. He pulls no punches.
I'll just read an excerpt from some of his. He says, "Congrats to AL.com for doing its best to motivate an unbeaten Alabama team that really doesn't need it leading into Saturday's game against LSU. The website took a partial quote from LSU linebacker Devin White and turned it into an opposing player trash-talking the Crimson Tide. AL.com used White's quote, "It's like having that older brother that you haven't been able to beat up," White told the media Monday. "We're bigger, stronger, and it's time to beat them up." And so that caused some stir among Alabama players, and Ron taking exception because now I'm trying to scream.
It was taken out of context, I believe.
Or maybe it was just pulled out of another long quote, it seems like. But still, I don't understand why. I don't know. Alabama fans would take that as trash talk. They want to even the quote in and of itself. The context is, yeah, y'all have beaten the crap out of us so many times. We feel like we're strong. We can come back and give you a fight. I mean, that's where I take it. I don't think it's some crazy thing. I mean, why? What's the point? Does Alabama really need bulletin board material? No, they're just better than everybody else. I mean, what does it matter?
Larry, Alabama fans are crazy.
They cray-cray?
They are crazy. You know that by now.
Of course I know that
Alabama
by now.
and Auburn fans are off the hook. So there is no logic. There is no rational thinking involved. They're insane. Go to I'm sure you've gone to AL.com. Anybody out there that wants to get a sense of how crazy Alabama fans are, go to our sister site, AL.com, and just read the comment streams on any Alabama-Auburn story. There's hundreds of them on every story, it seems like. And they go back and forth. They drive the traffic. It's craziness over there.
Well, I'm wondering what Alabama fan has to say at the first college football playoff rankings, because they are not number one. Another SEC team is number one, and it's Georgia, number one.
Surprised me a little bit.
I would say I'm surprised by that. Now, here's the thing. We've talked about Georgia a decent bit on the show over the past couple of months. I think Georgia's legit. And look at the top four. Georgia, Alabama. Number 3 is Notre Dame. Number 4 is Clemson. And, of course, Georgia beat Notre Dame in South Bend, and that's probably the decider, honestly, in these rankings, because it's not like Alabama's played some challenging road game. Every game they've won has been demolition derby, and the Florida State game that they won at the beginning of the year you thought would be a great win has turned out to be a total afterthought, and people are wondering why you didn't beat them worse, honestly,
right.
at this rate.
Well, that was a case of, we talk about all the time, when you play a team on the schedule, Florida State's opening game, that they've still got hope, they still believe, they have motivation, they're still confident in their ability. And then you play them later in the year, like now, they've been beat down, they probably have injuries, and they've lost some fire, let's face it. They've lost some motivation. So Florida State is a much different opponent now than when Alabama played them at the beginning of the year.
And Clemson's still up there, and I think that's fair. I think Clemson can still get through the ACC, and they could be in the Final Four mix. But I'm just curious to see how this pans out, because we know that Alabama and Georgia are basically on a collision course for Atlanta. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Now, if Georgia drops a game, they're going to drop out. I mean, that's at least out of the top 4. But I just can't see Georgia losing any game. I don't even have to look at their schedule. I just think that they're probably, for the first time in quite a few years, maybe going back to when LSU was number 1. I mean, it's the first real contender for Alabama for SEC supremacy, because the East has been so weak for so long.
Well, it's still really weak, except for Georgia.
Well, that's the thing. They have an alpha, though. Every other year, it's just, someone in there gets in, and it's you just stomp on them and move on to the playoff or to the BCS title game or something like that. I think it's the first time that Alabama is going to have a legitimate, major threat standing in front of them in the SEC title game in quite a while.
I agree 100%, and it'll be interesting to see what happens to whoever loses that game. I think they'll stay in the top 4 because they're so strong right now atop the rankings. And I tell you, looking at that Georgia program, that is one of the rare cases where a job change, a head coaching change worked out for everybody involved. I mean, Georgia looked like they needed – Mark Richt had just been there too long. He needed a change. So did Georgia. Mark Richt moves on to Miami. They're unbeaten. They are now surging, and they look like the program in the state. It's funny how those schools cycle to the top in Florida, the big 3. Right now, Florida State and Florida are struggling. Florida's changing coaches. If you're a recruit in the state of Florida, you might look at Miami. Whereas just 3 years ago, you would never done that.
Miami's number 10 in the rankings right now, and you look at the next highest Florida team in those rankings, UCF, Central Florida, is at 18, one spot above LSU, who is at 19.
UCF, wow. Scott Frost has done a great job there. Is South Florida even in there?
They're not in the top 25 in these first rankings. And I think when Tulane played South Florida, and Todd kind of warned us that, look, South Florida, it's not like they played really anyone totally
big
legit.
Time, yeah.
Right, yeah. So I think they're going to lack, even though they're high in the AP polls. I think in this that they're not as highly thought of, and I think that's I don't really have a horse in the race. Whatever.
Well, don't Miami and Notre Dame play coming up? I think they do. So that's a huge game. Miami, if they were to somehow upset Notre Dame, it will knock Notre Dame out of the playoff and could vault Miami all the way into the top 4, I would think, if they could knock off Notre Dame. Likewise, if Notre Dame wins that, that's the only game I think they have a chance to lose. I think they also play Stanford.
Well, Miami, when they get there, they're 10th now, but their meat of their schedule's coming. They're hosting Virginia Tech on Saturday, and then they're hosting Notre Dame the following week. So back-to-back big-time games for Miami, which will really kind of tell the story as far as if they can be top 4 worthy.
And they avoided Clemson in the ACC, so I assume that's who they would play in the championship game. So again, there's a lot of big games to play, and that's why you can't get too caught up in the rankings, the initial rankings, because I think the stat was 58% of the teams that have been in the top 4 of the initial rankings had not even made the playoff at the end of the year. Now, it's only a 3-year body of work, but nevertheless, over half the teams that are in the initial ranking don't end up in the playoffs, so there's a lot of football to be played.
And Notre Dame's got Wake Forest this week. They go to Miami, then they take on Navy, who's pesky as we've seen, and then they finish up at Stanford. So look, Notre Dame still has some work to do, and of course they don't have a championship game to worry about. So it's I think these college football rankings, and look, LSU at 19, I think that's about right. That's nothing you can gripe about. They're probably fortunate to be at 19 still. The Troy and Mississippi State losses are still bad, even though Mississippi State is ranked 16 in the first polls. Auburn is 14th. So those are the other SEC schools above LSU. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. That Alabama-Auburn game, I still think is going to be one to watch.
Absolutely. So in about 15 minutes, we'll talk with Will Guillory. Pelicans taking on the Timberwolves tonight in the Smoothie King Center. And look, I haven't even said the phone number. 504-260-1280.
That's why we didn't have any callers.
Well, I didn't even call. I don't know what. It just slipped my mind today. I don't know. It's rocking and rolling. Who knows?
You got too much candy in your system. You're in a sugar overload from last night.
I did eat a lemon head on the way in. And
one lemon head?
That's the only one I could find. That's the one pack of lemon head.
Oh, okay, a pack.
Well, no, just one big old lemon head.
Oh, there's big ones? I thought they were always the small little.
Oh, I got bigger ones.
Okay.
Get with the program, Jeff.
Why didn't you bring in some candy for the show?
I will tomorrow. I'll dump it out all over the place here on Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
So these are the pants that I wear to the
Your shot at $1,000. Now
like,
text the keyword
they're like
WIN to
like
200-200. You'll get a text confirming entry plus iHeartRadio info. Standard data and
I was about to say, do they look like golf pants?
Well, yeah, they're kind of like stretchy, but they look like dress pants. I love them.
I feel like I noticed you wearing them.
Yeah, so I went up in Green Bay.
What a elbow alley-oop down low, Blake Paul layup.
Yoga pants. Yoga pants. Like dress pants. And then, of course, it took off among the little...
Buried it!
Oh, you see, look, they look like dress pants.
Tulane basketball.
You know what else took off?
On Friday, November 10th.
They look like dress pants.
On the
you know what else took off in the peanut gallery is Clyde just totally putting you on blast.
Saw that. Saw that shit. Where'd that come? All of a sudden, just popped into my phone.
And you could have cash in your
account.
He
made it. He went and found it, dug it up, made a meme, and just ruined your life.
LendUp is a licensed credit services organization, not a direct lender in Ohio and Texas.
I got picks a week later. And I will say this: I don't even know who wins some of these games. So.
Selena Gomez is Billboard Magazine's Woman of the Year. A spokesman said that Gomez inspires young women to be authentic and not to be afraid to use their voices. It's very on top of a great year for the pop singer who has dominated the charts with hits like Bad Liar, Fetish, and It Ain't Me.
So I emailed her and I said, look, I don't know if we put together something or not.
Talk show host Wendy Williams recouping after fainting live on air during her Halloween broadcast. The New Jersey native passing out 48 minutes into her program while she was dressed as the Statue of Liberty. Producers cut to black and ran commercials. After the break, Williams was back on air and explained she overheated and passed out. Hollywood speculating Netflix may be conjuring up a House of Cards spinoff.
So now I'm like, okay, well, I'm not sorry for
the last season of the political drama following lead Kevin Spacey's sexual misconduct.
God, I can't believe he did it. He did it. Somebody thought of it.
Michael Jackson's mother, Catherine, beginning the process of ending her guardianship of Jackson's youngest child.
Oh, that was posted. We had that. We got that posted when that happened. Yeah, at the haunted house.
Saying that she is no longer needed to fulfill the duties. In 2012, Catherine Jackson and T.J. Jackson were appointed co-guardians of Michael Jackson's 3 children, Prince Jackson, Paris Jackson, now older than 18, Blanket, whose real name is Prince Michael Jackson, II, is now 15. That's entertainment. Jennifer.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
If you're a pro, you don't buy a little of this or that. You buy a lot of this or that. And at the Home Depot, you save even more. Save up to 15% in bulk discounts on select pro-grade products from top brands like 3M, Loctite, and Liquid Nails. As a pro, you work hard for your money. You shouldn't have to work hard to save it. Up to 15% in bulk discounts on select pro-grade products. Only at the Home Depot. More saving, more doing. See store for details.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Jeff, we know that Alabama knows that they're going to try to run the football. That's never changed, even when...
Who's they? LSU?
Yes.
Okay.
LSU will win the football. Want to run the football. I'm not going to say they will run the football.
Always get what you want. Is that...
That's a tune. You know, that was back when you were
famous
probably...
Rolling Stones song.
Back in your heyday, before you were attending sock house.
But if you try sometimes, you get what you need. So I think they're going to try sometimes on Saturday.
They're going to try all right, but look, I think they know as far as LSU... that this game is going to come down to and we've talked about it plenty enough times, if Danny Etling can make plays, and Alabama's going to force Danny Etling to make plays because they're going to try to take out the run game just like they did with Leonard Fournette, and that's going to be their MO. Look, basically last year, LSU, what was the score? 10-0 last year?
Yeah, they were very competitive in that game. Defense played lights out, and it's going to take that same kind of performance for them to stay in the game this time. And I think the defense will give Alabama problems. I mean, LSU is one of the few teams that can match up athletically, athlete for athlete, with Alabama. They don't face that very often. Where they've struggled is in the trenches, and Ed Ogeron talked about it this week. Up front, Alabama is just so much better right now because of recruiting that they eventually wear LSU down. And that's what happened last year. All of a sudden, Jalen Hurts broke free for a couple big runs that he wasn't doing in the second quarter, because the defense gets tired.
Do you think Danny Etling has any shot of getting this done for LSU? Any shot?
Yeah, I do. I like the fact, yesterday I think it was who were we talking to? Chris Dabe mentioned that he only has one pick all year, and that was in a kind of a Hail Mary situation, desperation time. That's a very underrated aspect of his game. And I think what's going to have to happen, I mentioned it yesterday, somebody's going to have to make a play on the perimeter. There's going to be a lot of one-on-one battles where Minkah Fitzpatrick's going one-on-one with DJ Chark, and Chark's going to have to win. Whether the ball is a jump ball, whatever, they're going to have to win those battles on the perimeter. They made some of those plays against Auburn, against a very good team, a very good defense. Can they do it again, replicate it in prime time in Tuscaloosa in that environment against that team? I don't know.
Well, Minkah Fitzpatrick picked off Etling last year in the game, so he certainly knows. Etling certainly knows who Minkah Fitzpatrick is when he's going to be going up against this defense.
He's a top 10 pick, probably the first corner in the draft. So, and it's just amazing. They keep rolling out these guys. I think they had 7 defenders drafted. I mean, yesterday, Matt Zenitz talked about it. Eddie Jackson was like a 5th-round draft pick. He was just the NFC Defensive Rookie of the Week.
2 defensive touchdowns and helped Chicago beat Carolina single-handedly.
He was the lowest drafted of all the Alabama defenders. So I'm looking at right now, ESPN's Todd McShay has his new big board of top prospects. Minkah Fitzpatrick is number 4 overall in the entire draft. Now, this is going to change a lot. Arden Key has vaulted back up to number 7. He's played better lately. And I think Darius Geis is 13th. And then you get into this phalanx of Alabama guys. Calvin Ridley at number 15. There's a bunch more here. Ronnie Harrison, the safety, at number 23. And I think there's more, but they're a little bit lower in the draft. I think like second-round guys, there's about 4 or 5. So there's going to be a lot of, as usual, a lot of players that will be playing on Sundays playing Saturday night in Tuscaloosa.
Oh, no doubt about that. And you look at the history of this series, and a lot of the players talking about, at least on the LSU side, talking about how this isn't even really that much of a rivalry, because in rivalries, it's back and forth. It hasn't been back and forth in quite a while. Last time LSU won was 2011, 9-6. Big, overwhelming win there. Even when they win in the Nick Saban era against Alabama, it's not like it's anything that's going to be some blowout win. I mean, so LSU certainly has to come out, play mistake-free, and like you said, I think you have to have some sort of punt return magic. You have to have some sort of either Russell Gage or DJ Chark gets it done, because no way Darius Geis, if he rushes for 100 yards, I'd be stunned, honestly. He's not rushing for like 270 or whatever. Like, he's not playing Ole Miss this week. They know that they're going to be focused in on him. And I'm curious just to see how creative Matt Canada tries to be. And I think they're going to have to try to be as creative as humanly possible. Even if they're running jet sweeps 2 out of every 8 plays, just something crazy, just to make them think about it, as opposed to run head first, just try to smash Leonard Fournette forward, try to smash Darius Geis forward. You got to just throw all of that old strategy out of the window, and Matt Canada just have at it and play like you're playing a video game. Just have fun and see what happens, because you're this massive underdog. If you lose by 20, you're supposed to lose by 20. If you somehow keep it close, that's an accomplishment.
I agree 100%. If I'm Ed Ogeron, my message to this team is let's just go have fun. I mean, they've got nothing to lose in this game. I realize there's a lot on the line. Technically, you could win the SEC West, but no one's expecting them to win. Nobody. And they should just be able to let it hang loose and try some stuff. I mean, they don't want to get crazy. You don't want to give the game away, because Alabama's a hard team to fool. They're so sound and disciplined. They don't fall for a lot of stuff. And Nick Saban talked about it this week, the window dressing and all that. But, fake a punt or something and get your team some momentum and some life and some confidence, because I'm not 100% convinced they truly believe they can win the game when they walk on the field.
I'm not convinced of that.
You walk out there, you see those uniforms, and you're in that environment. It's tough, and that's half the battle when you play Alabama. Now, one thing I was surprised, though, I was looking at the series history online. Alabama leads the series 50, 24, and 5 all time. Their 6-game winning streak right now is the longest winning streak in the series dating back. It's the second longest ever. I didn't realize Alabama won 11 games in a row against LSU from 81 to 71.
I would assume that's the Bear Bryant year.
Yes, the entire decade of the 70s, LSU never beat Alabama.
Well, hey, so it could be worse.
It could be worse. It's like from Young Frankenstein. It could be raining. It could be worse.
Exactly. Let's switch gears here. Pelicans, Timberwolves tipping off in the Smoothie King Center tonight?
Yes.
Tonight, yes. Why am I thinking? I don't know. Brain fart just now. But going to talk with
T-Wolves.
Exactly. Talking with Will Guillory, Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune coming up here next on a Wobble Wobble Wednesday, Sports 1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app with Dunc and Holder.
Put $1,000 in your hand. Win $1,000 every hour. Up to 16 times a day. Weekdays. Starting at 5 a.m. When you hear the keyword, text it to 200-200. Listen all day for a chance to put $1,000 in your hand on Sports 1280, New Orleans. Your forecast on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
This report is brought to you by Holiday Inn.
From the Fox 8 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Bruce Katz. Through your Wednesday afternoon.
I don't know who the coach was at LSU.
Cloudy skies.
Charlie Mack?
Spotty showers, rain coverage.
Yeah, that's why he lost his job, right? He finally just said, I can't beat Alabama.
Now tonight, overnight lows dropped to the mid to upper 60s.
That sounds like that's
under
Charlie
partly
Mack
cloudy skies. And for Thursday and Friday, I'm going to still hold in a 20% chance of rain. Not that big of a deal, but it's not going to feel like November. In fact, temperatures in the lower 80s with overnight lows staying in the 60s. Dry and warm continued weather into the weekend. From the Fox 8 Weather Center,
yeah, he's having a monster
start. Weather Authority forecast.
Stop by the Roundhouse Bar and Grill inside the Round Holiday Inn on the West Bank Expressway.
We got Will.
Cool.
Or dinner.
Someone on YouTube, Dave, just asked if that was you on that last rap song.
Watching that show.
Of course it was.
Sounded like that.
The show, that's fantasy. More people in America.
Little do y'all know, I actually perform all these songs myself.
Which is 93% of Americans each week.
I even have groovy dancers in the studio with me.
Oh, damn. We need to go back over there.
I know.
See? Y'all missed that?
You know what we have here? Clyde.
Yeah.
You win. Dave wins.
Media.com for the one place.
Yeah, Amos did the show over there.
FM radio.
Are you taking Viagra for ED?
Well, obviously, you walked in.
Well,
you wasn't
now
in here
you
doing
can get
it,
sildenafil, the active ingredient in Viagra, in generic 20 milligrams for $2 per tablet. That's a savings of $40 per dose. Marley Drug is a North Carolina pharmacy delivering generic sildenafil to your door. For information on sildenafil, go to marleygenerics.com or call us at 800-853-6375. That number
whiz those footballs right through that tire swing.
6375.
Colonel Sanders from KFC here to talk about the good old days. Well, the good old days are still here in chicken form. Specifically, in KFC's original recipe fried chicken with 11 herbs and spices. Our delicious chicken is still hand-breaded and...
10 seconds.
Then, Get your fill with 2 pieces of my original recipe in a $5 fill-up with mashed potatoes, a biscuit, a cookie, and a drink at a KFC near you. KFC, it's still finger-licking good. At participating KFCs, prices may vary. Tax extra.
Get down. Yes, sir. Slip and slide records. Get down. Finna take it to the highs.
Whether you bless those boys or take flight, we're talking your teams. Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Duncan Holder back at you for about another 25 minutes or so. And joining us right here on the show every Wednesday, he makes the call. He has to be on Wobble Wobble Wednesday. Without it, his week is not complete. That is Will Guillory, Pelicans beat writer for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. What's up, Will?
What's up? What's up? You know, if I get that call for Wobble Wobble Wednesday, I got to drop whatever I'm doing to make sure I make that happen.
Exactly. Drop everything. I don't care. Yeah, I don't care if you're talking with DeMarcus Cousins. I don't care if you're talking to Anthony Davis. You got to give them. Wait. Hold on. Exactly. Hold on. So, okay, Jeff and I had a difference of opinions. I'd say yesterday about Boogie after his sluggish performance against Orlando. I said he was basically due a sluggish performance given how many minutes he's played. And Jeff was just like, no, he's a total bum.
I didn't say it that way.
That's exactly what he said.
I'm saying those inconsistencies the Pelicans can't afford. They need him every night, just like Drew Holiday did not show up very well. And they're not going to win when 2 of those big 3 don't play up to their expectations.
Yeah, and I probably would say I agree with a little bit of what both of y'all say. I mean, I think that after it was hard to expect him to keep up at the pace he was going through the first 6 games of the year. He was over 28 points, 5 of the 6 games, dropped 40 in Sacramento, had a triple-double against Cleveland. It was hard to expect him to play at that level. But I think one of the big arguments against Boogie throughout his career is that it's hard to depend on him, through an 82-game schedule to kind of be the leader of the team, to kind of not just, score the points to get the rebounds, but just be the emotional leader on the court, the guy that brings the energy on a night-to-night basis. I think he's definitely had games like he had on Monday in the past where he kind of, mentally checks out at some point. And, you got to – he knows he has to improve that, and the team needs more from him, if they're going to make this push for the playoffs, because everything runs through him and AD, and if they're not on their game, then the team pretty much has 0 chance to beat any good team in this league.
Will taking on the Timberwolves tonight, 7 o'clock tip-off at Smoothie King Center. Of course, you can listen to that game on our sister station, 99.5 FM WRNO. And we knew that the Orlando game would be a tough game. Of course, you're coming off of even though if you don't want to call it a big win, I think it's a significant win. You beat LeBron James in anything. I don't care who's in the lineup. It's a good win. But then they came out and played against Orlando, who's been surprisingly good this year. What kind of Pelicans team do you think we're going to see tonight against the Timberwolves team, who I think is fair to say, and Will, I think you would agree, that they're in the same kind of boat with the Pelicans where they're trying to vie for a 5 through 8 spot in the Western Conference?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Minnesota, while they have guys like Jimmy Butler, Karl Anthony Towns, some big names on that team, they still have a whole lot to prove. They haven't been to the playoffs in a long time. They've suffered a couple disappointing losses this season, and I think, especially from DeMarcus Cousins, I'm really interested to see what he does tonight, just because he kind of just owned the fact that he didn't really bring the energy on Monday night. He kind of affected everybody else negatively on the squad, and I think he wants to come out and kind of make up for that and kind of show that he is the leader for this team, and he wants to be that guy to help push them to where they want to go. So I think he's going to come out with a lot of effort, a lot of energy tonight. And I think another reason this game is interesting, just because the Pelicans obviously throughout basically the past 2 or 3 years has been just desperate trying to find that wing, that 3 guy, the 3-a-dean guy that everybody in the league kind of wants at this time. They've just struggled to kind of figure out that role, and I think the Timberwolves have 2 of the better guys in the league at that. Andrew Wiggins and Jimmy Butler, 2 of the better wings you'll find in this league. and the Pelicans are going to have to find a way to limit those guys and keep them out of the paint. The Pelicans have kind of had success playing a lot of these 3-guard lineups, playing, some smaller guys that are a little versatile, like Drew Holiday, E'Twaun Moore, guys that are smaller but are capable of defending those bigger guys. I think they're going to be tested tonight if they can make that happen, and it'll be interesting to see what they do to kind of limit those guys on one end and attack them on the other end.
Yeah, I agree, Will. I think it's going to be a fascinating game to watch matchup-wise, because I think this is kind of a case in point of what Dell Demps and Alvin Gentry put together here, these two twin big men giving matchup problems to teams around the league like the Timberwolves that have kind of gone small ball. I know Karl Anthony Towns is a big, but their two of their best players are wings, and frankly, that's something that's given the Pelicans problems. So it's going to be interesting to see which tandem wins out and who actually of the two defends Karl Anthony Towns. I assume they're going to put AD on him, but I'm not sure how they're going to defend Towns right now, because I agree with you. I think Cousins is going to come out like a house of fire tonight after that performance Monday. He owned it on Tuesday, and I think he's going to come out with the full big good boogie, not the bad boogie tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him perform tonight and kind of make up for that performance. And I think overall, I think one of the biggest takeaways for the Pelicans that they have to be happy about through these first 7 games is that there's no doubt, I think, in their mind that they can make the Anthony Davis and DeMarcus Cousins pairing work. I think that was when the trade first went down, just how ugly the offense was. There was kind of, a question of, hey, can these guys play together? Can you get away with both of them on the court at the same time? But I think those questions have pretty much been answered. They've been terrific, when they've shared the court. They've both put up big numbers. Anthony's got it scoring without necessarily handling the ball as much. Boogie's found a way to get his assists up. He's found a way to score inside, outside. They've even had a game where Anthony and Boogie played well, and Drew Holiday scored 29 points against Cleveland. So that's the ultimate goal, is to have all 3 of those guys play well. So I think that's one of the biggest takeaways so far. It's just a matter of finding a way to get more production out of the E'Twaun Moores, the Ian Clarks, the Dante Cunninghams. Once they get those guys more comfortable knocking down shots, then I think you'll see this offense kind of take off.
Will Guillory, our colleague of NOLA.com and Times-Picayune, covers the Pelicans, joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Will, what is the timetable to get Rajon Rondo back? I know he was supposed to miss, the first 10 to 12 games. When do you think we will see Rondo put on the Pelicans jersey in a regular season game for the first time?
Yeah, we've seen Rondo, around the practice gym a lot, getting his shots up, moving around. He's looking okay, but I think the Pelicans want to take it pretty slow with him. I don't think they want to rush him back. So I'm expecting him back right around that 10 to 12 game mark. I think that's right where they want to get him back. My guess is from seeing him, I think he looks fine. I'm not sure how much 5-on-5 he's playing right now. I doubt he's doing a whole lot of that. But I think they're going to try to get him back right around that time that they said. They didn't want to rush back with an injury like a core muscle injury or a sports hernia. They've kind of gone back and forth with the way they've phrased it. But I think with an injury like that, there's a lot of danger of it popping up again if you rush back too soon. So I think they wanted to take their time with him. But I think once he does comes back, it's going to be an interesting transition for this team, kind of figuring out that, they've kind of made it work with Drew Holiday and E'Twaun Moore as the backcourt pairing, is just by, having the ball in Boogie's hands more often. And now with Rondo inserted in the lineup, obviously he's going to have the ball in his hands a whole lot more now. So now they're going to have to figure out how to make it work with him and how to, still get guys like Drew Holiday and Anthony Davis involved with the ball in their hands a little bit less. So I think that'll be interesting, but I think they're going to try to take it slow with Rondo to make sure he's good for the long haul.
Yeah, the Pelicans, they have their game tonight, and then they hit the road for 4 straight games. They are at Dallas, Chicago, Indiana, and Toronto the next, week and a half. So, look, you look at the start, and I've said this to Jeff before on the show. The fact that they're not just totally terrible to start the season. We've seen them start so slow so often, even with some of the issues they've had. I think at least, public perception-wise, there's probably a little more interest because they're around 500. Probably, they won a game no one expected them to win against Cleveland, and that the fact that they're around 500 at this point, at least there's probably some better public perception. Is that kind of maybe the gauge you're seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you see at least through the first 2 home games. Obviously, a big part of that was Golden State and Cleveland were the teams playing here. But I think you saw a really big crowd. You saw a lot of enthusiasm during those games. So I think obviously Orlando fell off, and the performance didn't help. But I think just talking to Pelicans fans around the city, I think people are excited to see what Boogie and AD can do. I think that there's a lot of optimism that this team can finally get back to the playoffs and start competing in the Western Conference. And once you do that, there's the potential of, hey, maybe AD and Boogie can start attracting other guys to start playing here, and then they can take that next step. But I think overall, I think fans are happy about what they've seen. I think, just like I said before, the fact that AD and Boogie have played so well together early in the season has been a big point of emphasis around the city. Just people saying, hey, we finally have a big two. Both of these guys are playing great. They're showing they can win. They're showing they can compete against the best teams in the league. Now it's just about putting the right guys around them so they can take that next step in their progression. So I think that's a great thing for the team overall. But just like we keep saying, they've got to start putting some wins up, especially in these home games against teams they feel like they're at least even with. They've got to be able to come out and just win these games and not just give it away just from their own mistakes or just not showing up with the right energy. That's the stuff that you've got to avoid if you want to be a good team, especially in the West.
Yeah, Will, I'll tell you, the glass half full approach to a 3-4 start is the fact that they're 2 games out of first in the Western Conference, because the Western Conference is crazy right now. The Memphis Grizzlies, of all teams, atop the standings at 5-2, but the problem is, just like in the past, everybody's in the same boat. There's, I think, 11 or 12 teams that are within 2 games right now between 5-2 Memphis and then a group of teams, including the Pelicans, the Lakers, Nuggets, and Suns at 3-4, a bunch of teams at 4-3. I mean, it's just going to be this way all year, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be wide open, and who stays healthy, who can stay motivated in some of these games, not drop the games like you talked about. I think it's going to be critical to kind of maintain some level of consistency, because this thing's going to go way into March and April before it gets decided.
Yeah, and I would say the crazy thing about the West right now, if you just talk to the different fan bases around the league, probably the only teams in the West that don't think they're making the playoffs at this time are Phoenix, Sacramento, and Dallas. I mean, they started off pretty rough there. They've got really young rosters. But besides that, I think everybody else kind of considers themselves in the playoff hunt. I think the Lakers fans are excited what they're doing. Obviously, everybody in the Southwest Division thinks that they've got a chance. You got Utah still hanging around after losing Gordon Hayward. Minnesota's coming up now with Jimmy Butler on that roster. Denver feels like they've got a great chance. So, I mean, there's a lot of teams around the West that the Pelicans are going to be competing with, and they've all got their own reason to feel like they've got a chance, or they've all got their own star that they feel like can get them there. So the biggest thing for the Pelicans now is just to figure out their identity, somehow, some way get a healthy roster. I know that sounds crazy talking about this team to not have 6 people on the injury report going into every game, but somehow they got to get at least a few of those guys back in the lineup, and they can start making a push here. But it's going to be a tough road just because there's so many good teams in the West. So many teams that already have an identity, like Denver knows they're going to be a team that wants to score 110, 115 a night. Minnesota knows they're going to be a team that pounds you in the paint on a night-to-night basis. You can keep going on the line. Griffin and DeAndre Jordan have played really well with the LA Clippers. So those teams have playoff experience, or at least a few of them have playoff experience in the past. They know how they want to play. So that they have a little bit of a step right now on the Pelicans, and right now the Pelicans are still just figuring out how they're going to play and how they're going to win on a night-to-night basis. But once they do, I mean, they've got the 2 stars, so they feel like they can compete against anybody.
Will Guillory covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. Check out all of his coverage tonight of Pelicans T-Wolves, 7 o'clock tip. Follow all of his coverage on Twitter. And, of course, on NOLA.com and in our print editions of the Times-Picayune. I will appreciate the time as always, and always a wonderful trip on a Wobble Wobble Wednesday with you, my friend.
Absolutely. My favorite day of the week. I appreciate you guys.
There you go. All right. That's Will Guillory.
Thanks, Will.
Doing an awesome job covering the Pelicans. One more segment here on the show. So come on back. Sports1280, NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder.
The second annual Wine on the River is Saturday, November 11th at Audubon Aquarium Plaza. Tickets on sale now at wineontheriver.NOLA.com, with proceeds benefiting the Louisiana Hospitality Foundation. Presented by Southern Glazers.
Clicked off the chat. I don't know how to get it back. Do you know how to get it back?
Atlantis, where life expresses itself as an endless flow of energy. Are you ready? Atlantis.
Nice answer.
At heart.
It's not. I clicked off. It said hide chat or something, and now you're
Reviews
like,
are
how you
trickling
popping
in
up
for the
there?
iPhone 10. Business Insider says the redesigned look of the phone is refreshing.
They just want to
that
zoom
at
in on
5.8 inches, the screen size
How did that
strikes the
happen?
perfect balance, and that the new OLED screen is stunning.
Just naturally
as
likes
it's
me.
painted onto the phone. Business Insider's review says the Face ID worked well. It unlocks the phone quickly in low light,
But I
bright
don't know
light,
how to
dim
get the
light,
chat back.
and even in
Is that
a
it?
pitch black closet. Google gave some
I don't
reporters
know.
a ride in their
Disaster.
self-driving
Oh.
cars. Ars Technica got to ride in the
That's always something.
secret testing facility on an Air Force base in California. The cars are designed to never have anyone touch the
Where's
steering
Clyde
wheel
when you
or
need him?
pedals. There are
After
buttons
you
for passengers
dogging
to
them
call
out.
Waymo customer support, lock and
Clyde
unlock
the
the car,
Glide.
pull over and stop the car and start a ride. Waymo trying to make passengers feel safe with a real-time display showing the schematic situation around the car. For example, if there's a bicycle on the road ahead, the passenger will see the outline of a bicycle on the screen. Tech report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
I met someone. You hear it a lot from people on Match because more people have met their someone on Match than any other dating
Where's
app.
the red?
Everyone wants to find that meaningful
It's all
connection.
around us.
And Match is not only number one and
I don't
first,
understand
but
why- I
second
know there's a
dates
little bit of a
too.
delay,
Now
but
here's a
usually
free
it-
offer for our listeners.
You
Go to
go here and you just hit wide. They love
Match.com/party
me.
for 7 days
Camera loves
free.
me.
That's
Wide.
7 days completely free to search, view photos, and connect. This free offer is found at Match.com/party. That's
Camera loves me.
Match.com/party. Match.com/party.
The hospitality and tourism industry is more
I don't know what's
vibrant
going
and
on.
alive
Totally
in New
screwed up
Orleans than
everything.
almost anywhere else in the country. Would you or someone you know like to get in on the excitement? Delgado Community College is offering an 8-week training course for 18 to 24-year-olds
Once
who
again.
want careers
there's
in the
back.
hospitality
Yeah.
and tourism industry.
Just
Yeah, free.
Placement and stipend
We
payments
just
during
wanted to see
training to
me.
eligible
Close up.
applicants. Go to
Camera's got a crush on Larry.
DCC.edu. A message from
Hey Jeff,
Yes, bud.
you gotta click on show. You gotta click on show chat,
Show
and then it'll
chat.
come back.
I don't see that,
Yeah.
Dave.
I don't see that, Dave.
Where's it at? Where's show chat?
Scroll down a little.
At unbound.org.
I clicked on hide chat. That's how I lost it.
This is Dunc and Holder on Sports 1280, New Orleans.
Poor Jeff. Technically unsavvy.
Yeah, I don't see you helping, Mr. Just refresh the page answer.
I'm too busy looking at my latest Super Bowl odds. That's all I care about. It's Wednesday. I get my odds from Bovada, and that's all I care about. You know me. Gamble McGee without actually doing any gambling.
Larry's the guy that looks under the hood of the car and looks for an on-off switch when things go bad.
Or if I can't get it to work immediately, there's always super glue or a zip tie. That's the answer. I've got two things.
Gorilla tape. That worked out well.
I've got two probably pretty important aspects of my car that are being held together by zip ties. One is my
fender.
You see the fender.
Yeah.
Two
Classy.
is my battery died and I changed out the battery and I couldn't quite get one of the things to stay on one of the plus minus charges, so it kept flying off and I couldn't tighten the screw because it's an awkward thing, so I just zip tied it, so it's zip tied on.
How are you? You're not going to be able to pass the inspection. No way.
We're not going to talk about the
Brake
last
tag.
time I've passed an inspection. We're not going to talk about that.
Oh, we're not going to.
No, we're not going to talk about that.
So you're
I'm a rebel.
You're illegal. You're like me. I did that for years.
I'm a rebel. Illegal. No, just a
the
rebel.
brake tag's such a scam. That's another scam.
That is a scam.
It's basically a tax on us.
Right.
Let's face it. Come on.
That is a scam.
And I hope you don't ever have to go get an inspection again. I wonder what your sticker is on your car.
I can tell you, but I'm not going to reveal that publicly. No, I'm not going to reveal that publicly. I drive a Lexus SUV, so come looking for me.
Very funny.
Exactly.
So with a twist-tied fender.
With a twist-tied fender.
For years, I refused to go get my brake tag, and then finally one day I got nailed.
That's the thing, yeah.
And once you get nailed, it's not worth it because then they didn't forget about all the expired years that you passed on.
Well, hopefully I'll get a new car before I get
For a while, you could get away with it, but Louisiana's finally got its act together on that stuff.
No, that's unfortunate. But
For once.
Yeah, exactly. But look, like I said, I just got the odds in. You know I can't avoid, if I get them, I've got to talk about them.
Bring it.
So according to Bovada, Super Bowl 52 winners, the best odds remain with the New England Patriots at 7-2, followed by the Eagles and Steelers. Eagles 6-1, Steelers are 7-1. The Saints have improved to 20-1. They're even with the Rams. So the teams that are ahead of the Saints as far as odds of winning the Super Bowl are the Patriots, Eagles, Steelers, Chiefs, Seahawks, Vikings, Falcons, Cowboys. So there are still, obviously I got to count on air, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are 6 teams ahead of the Saints as far as Super Bowl odds, and they're even with the Rams. So Vegas isn't on board totally yet with the Saints even being, I guess according to this, even a playoff team in the NFC, much less the Super Bowl champion. They still have the Falcons with better odds, and of course the Saints have a 1-game lead on the Falcons right now in the NFC South.
I think the Saints are getting ready to put some big-time distance between them and their competition in the division. This game Sunday, I think, is not going to be close. I think the Saints are going to jump on Tampa early. They're in total disarray, I think, on both sides of the ball. And I think the Saints put them away early. And then they have a critical game up in Buffalo. Those games are always tough. It's not an opponent you're used to playing. It's in a foreign environment, if you will. They don't go to Buffalo very often. I think I've been there twice, and I've covered the league 20 years. It's just a weird game. And Buffalo, you mentioned, brings in Kelvin Benjamin. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a very underrated quarterback. They got a good defense. That game's going to be tough.
They got LaShawn McCoy, so he could still get it done. But yeah, obviously that's in 2 weeks. Look, I've never been to Buffalo. I mean, I've never
you haven't been up there?
Yeah,
you got to go to Niagara Falls. It's right there. Take the Maid of the Mist out, the little boat that goes out right underneath the falls. You have to put on a poncho because there's so much humidity and water in the air. It's really
random
cool.
question. Should I wear the poncho forwards or backwards? What should I do?
I think you need to wear it forward. I think that's a little inside baseball, but nevertheless. Oh, by the way, did you get invited to the Herbie paintball adventure? Were you on that?
I was on that text chain.
Okay, were you going to do it? I didn't see you.
Well, when is it?
I don't know. We got to get Herbie to basically go scout out this new West Bank paintball. What do you call it? Field? What is it called?
I don't know.
Paintball.
Hey, real quick, guys. DJ in NOLA East wants to know if you think the Buffalo Saints game is going to get flexed.
Oh, that's a good question.
We would find out probably
this week,
This week, I would think.
Yeah, later this week. I think they do it basically like 10 days ahead of time. That one's a very strong possibility because that game is shaping up to be interesting.
Well, I don't know the rest of the schedule. Let me look at the rest of the schedule. What is it, week 10? Let's take a look at the week 10 schedule because if they still have intriguing games, they're not going to flex it.
Well, and the other thing is usually they like to flex games that have some kind of divisional consequences or even conference games, interconference games, as opposed to AFC, NFC, Buffalo, New England.
They're not going to move Dallas, Atlanta.
No.
And they're probably not going to move the Patriots in Denver, even though
no chance.
30 seconds.
So yeah. I would probably go against it. So
probably not.
Want to thank Will Guillory. Want to thank Todd Grappanini. Want to thank Greg Auman. If you missed any of this, sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So come on back for another episode of Dunc and Holder on a Thursday. So sports1280. NOLA.com, and the iHeartRadio app. We're Dunc and Holder. See ya.
No.
All right, guys.
Thanks, Dave. You're a stud.
I try.
You succeed.
Illegal Mexican immigrants living near the California-Mexico
when Dave said 30
border
seconds,
have a greater chance of having mental disorders than the rest of the U.S. population. A Rice University study found that nearly 1 out of 4 Mexicans...
Yeah, I try not to scream at you.
Depression, anxiety disorder were the most prevalent illnesses. Researchers said that language barriers, fear of deportation,